I think we're just missing Aaron.
I didn't see Karen either.
You're right. She's not on yet.
Diane, thank you very much for my package.
You're welcome. I'm official now. I actually have a badge. I can work the copy machine, so I'm good.
Oh, boy. You're big time because nobody else has it.
I know, I got big times today.
Thank you
You
very
used
much.
to know the numbers. Remember when we had to push in numbers?
Oh, God, yes. The old days.
We don't have a badge. I don't have a badge.
Of course you don't. You're not important.
I figured that out a long time ago, Vic.
Karen's coming in.
Yeah, I see her. So it's not quite 7. We'll wait a few more minutes for Aaron.
Yeah.
I think she might be in. Ah, there she is. Are we ready, everybody? Nice tie, Vic.
It's a Rhode Island tie.
Yeah, I figured as much. If it didn't have Mickey Mouse on it, it had the state of Rhode Island. All right, it's 7 o'clock. So how about if we open this meeting and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the flag
of the
of the United States of America
and to
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. I wanted to point out to you that normally the first Monday of the month, we have a workshop instead of a business meeting, but because we have things to vote on tonight, we called it a we called it a business meeting. Having said that, we will have public comment, but the public will also be allowed to ask questions during the technology presentation and the CTE presentation. So I will recognize you after the presentations are done and the school committee is done with their discussion. So having said that, is there anybody signed up for public comment? You see anybody? Anybody raise their hand? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, I need a motion to accept the consent agenda, please.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving down to number 5, we're taking A off the agenda. We thought we had someone and we don't. So we're moving on first of all, to be. And I discussed this with Dr. Bryce this morning, so I'm going to turn to him and have him explain to you what we're doing, and we have to vote on this. So Dr. Bryce, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to just share with members of the school committee that over the last probably 12 months, we have gone through a number of searches to find a CFO to fill the position here in our district. And our most recent foray into that, we did not find a candidate that we could reach an agreement with. Mary King, who has come in and is doing work along with Diane Brennan, reached out to some consulting firms, and we have 2 contracts that I would like the school committee to vote and approve, that both of these firms could work on our behalf to find us a chief financial officer. One is Robert Half Finance and Accounting. They are an international firm. They have a Providence office. And the other is Graysmith Companies. They are a local Bristol firm. And both of them come very highly rated after the conversation with Mary King, and both you have the contracts for both of them in front of you, and it would be up to us to accept the candidate that they would provide for our service over the next however long, but certainly for at least the first year.
Very good. So I need a motion to accept the contracts for the recruiting firm and a second, so that if there's any discussion, we can have it now.
A motion to approve the contract for the recruiting firms.
Thank you, Sheila.
Second.
Thank you. All right, discussion. Does anybody have any questions about this? Yes, Mr. Cabral.
Are we hiring 2 firms to search out a candidate for us? Is that what we're doing?
Mr. Cabral, absolutely. What we're doing is giving both of them the opportunity to find quality candidates and present them. We would then go through an interview process, and whichever candidate we select from whichever firm, they would be the ones that would actually we would actually pay.
No, that means that both of them are going out searching. If one finds a candidate, then the other one doesn't get any money at all. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what is the fee? What is the fee going to be?
So it is specific to each individual. It's 25% for Robert Half and 20% for Graysmith Companies.
Of whatever we decide to pay the person?
That is correct. First year salary.
All right. So that's all I was concerned with. Thank you.
Yes, Aaron. Aaron, yes.
Thanks, sorry. I thought it was 30% and 35%.
Yes, so for Robert Half, it's actually we agreed to a fee of 25% of the hired candidate's annual starting salary. For Greystone, it was actually 30%, but then they have agreed that if all payment terms are met, they will amend the fee to 20% of first year annual earnings.
Okay, so it's not what we have in front of us. This is something that was negotiated after.
No, it's exactly what we have in front of us. If you look on the Robert Half on the first page.
I have 35. Am I reading this wrong?
Yeah, it's in the first paragraph, Erin. This is based on our conversation, the letterhead.
Yeah.
Flip it over,
So is
maybe.
it 35 or 25?
It's 25.
25.
25.
Okay.
I have to agree with Aaron. It's a little deceiving because there is a 35 and a 30% written in there, and then it's down to 25 in the next sentence, even on the Graysmith.
Yeah, and I don't understand what the difference is between what they're saying there. Because on Robert Half, it says, our standard fee is 35% of the hired candidate's annual salary. And then it says, oh, okay, so that's just what their general thing is, and then
That's their
okay.
standard, and then you
Okay,
can
so-
negotiate with them.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So that's 25, and then you said for Graysmith, it would be 20?
That is correct. If you look under fees on that first paragraph, their standard fee in this, to use the same language as we use for Robert Half,
I
their
see.
standard fee is 30, but they will amend it down to 20.
Okay, so I just have one other question then. Thank you for clarifying, everyone. So are we going with 2 at the same time because we want to take an aggressive approach here because we really need someone? I guess my question is, why don't we go, why isn't the consideration to go with Graysmith at the 20% and see what happens with that? And then if that doesn't work out, to go to the company offering 25?
So I think based on the conversations that I've had with Mary King, here's the rationale. Robert Half is an international firm. So not only do they have connections here in Providence in the Providence office, but they have a Boston office. They probably have offices all over the world. And they're just going to have a bigger net that allows them to cast a much wider net and potentially bring in more candidates. Graysmith is a local company, and that local company may have a net that is much more localized to this particular area. And so we actually think that their candidate pool may be equally large, but localized, whereas Robert Half's candidate pool may be large, but it may, sort of be more diverse coming from other areas. And so we believe the strategy of the 2 firms, one that is local, one is international, give us the best shot at finding that high quality candidate.
Okay, thank you. So the district only pays the company who finds the candidate that we hire?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Yes, Carly, go ahead. You're muted, Carly.
Eventually I'll figure this out. My apologies. Okay, I'll make this quick. Dr. Bryce, you mentioned in negotiating the lower percentage with, I think it was was it the local firm or the international firm?
Yeah.
If payment terms were met, then we would get the lower rate. What are those payment terms?
Yep. And so it's just talking about making sure that the fees are due within 10 days of the employment start date. And really, those are the terms.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, Karen.
Are we going to continue to advertise on our own, and if we somehow manage to find somebody, do we have to pay these headhunters like a flat fee, or is it just if we hire one of theirs?
It's just if we hire one of theirs. And in terms of whether or not we are going to continue to advertise, I think our decision, if the school committee chooses to go with these firms, is to allow the firms to actually go and find us a candidate, because we have not been able to do that over a number of searches.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? All right.
I have another question. Is there a time limit on this?
What?
Is there a time limit on this?
No.
There is no time limit.
Oh, I see, with the company. Oh.
There is no time limit, but certainly I would expect that they are going to hit the ground running as soon as the school committee makes a decision. And of course, our hope is to get a candidate in as quickly as possible. We want the right candidate. I'll borrow something from the Baltimore Ravens. Ozzie Newsome used to always say, right player, right price. We want the right candidate at the right salary moving forward. And so I think that's something that these 2 firms will afford us.
Thank you.
Okay, if we're all good, then I would like a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. Dr. Bryce, you're on your way.
Thank you.
I hope this one works. Sorry, I'm moving my papers around. All right, we'll move to C, which is suspension of school committee policies, DJ and DIC. I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to actually amend the procurement policy DJ to change all goods and services that are valued at $1,000 or more to be signed off by the chair and the treasurer, and anything that is $5,000 or more to be signed off by the full school committee, and all capital expenditures on hold pending our consultant's recommendations.
I need a second.
Second?
All right, discussion.
Excuse
Anybody?
me, I'm sorry, can you just, Sheila, tell me where those are, those changes you want?
They're in policy DJ.
Yes,
Do you want?
which paragraph? I'm sorry, I'm trying to
Oh,
make the notes
it's
for
in
minutes.
it's the third paragraph.
Okay, so you're changing the 10,000 for construct, where are you?
No, so
changing?
the 10,000 will be on hold. So anything that's capital will be on
Okay.
hold pending our consultant's recommendations.
Okay,
And then after that, it says and, so it'll say and $1,000 or more.
for all other purchases?
No. So yeah, so it would say $1,000 or more for other purchases shall be signed off by the treasurer and the chair. And then $5,000 for all other purchases will be signed off by the full committee.
Okay.
Okay.
You got it, Diane?
No, but I guess I'll have, Sheila, I don't see.
I see
You're on
it.
DJ, right?
DJ, yeah. Yep.
Oh, I see you.
Procurement policy.
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Does anybody have any comment? Yes, Erin.
Yes, thank you.
I see you, Carla.
Mine is just sort of, just I don't know. I guess like a point of order or something. I'm not really sure. I thought that if the item on the agenda is as stated, suspension of these policies, that we would have that discussion. And then if someone had an amendment, they would make an amendment and we would discuss that, because I don't, now I'm like, you know what I mean? Is that not how it's done? I've just never seen an amendment made before discussion. So I just wanted to understand that. Thank you.
Marge, do you want me to suspend it and then do the
Yes,
amendment?
please.
Or- Okay. So
Erin,
Diane.
well, let me just explain. Erin is correct. You have to read the motion to match what's on the agenda. Then you can amend the motion after it's seconded, and then we have to vote on the amendment before we vote on the entire motion. So,
Okay, Diane, you ready again?
I'm going to go with the video because I'm lost completely. I don't even know
Sorry.
where you are on this paper here. I'm looking at
All
there
right.
are 3 eyes.
So the motion is suspend of the school committee policy, GJ procurement policy, and DIC Gatsby 54 spending policy, and minimal fund balance policy.
no, I need a second again, Tara.
Second.
All right, now we can have discussion. And now Sheila, you can talk about what you want to talk about, but Carly had her hand up first.
Okay,
So-
they can go. Carly and Erin can go. All right.
Okay, because I'm happy to let Sheila have her turn.
No, that's okay.
Okay. So let me get this straight. What we're doing here is we're taking Dr. Bryce's authority to spend money away and seeking for, actually, we'll wait for the amendment for later. So I'm trying to understand why it's necessary to suspend this when we've been abundantly clear about what needs to be done. Why do we need to micromanage administration? I don't see why we're taking power away and making it more difficult for people to do their jobs.
You're asking that in the form of a question, or are you making a statement?
Well, kind of both. I think this is kind of feels like micromanaging, and that we're not trusting administration to do their job. And I'm really concerned that we're making it more difficult for our staff and administrators to be able to execute their jobs.
Yes, Erin.
If it's okay with Carly, because I don't mean to jump in on you, Carly, I just thought that maybe if we backed it up just a little bit, I had some questions that I feel like I might be at the very beginning of this and other people might be a little bit ahead of me.
Sure.
So my questions would be, which might clarify where Carly's coming from and what Sheila is proposing to do for an amendment. I just feel like I need these preliminary questions answered first. So I think I understand why the GASB 54 policy is on here. I'm guessing that's the unassigned fund balance, right? Is that correct? And you guys can get in more into that. My preliminary question is this. Whose recommendation is it to suspend these policies? And that would be the person, I guess, or people who would answer these following questions, which are, why are these policies up for suspension? For how long will they be suspended? I would like to know the reasoning for each individual policy being up for suspension in light of the fact that we have already agreed to a spending freeze, which is a point that Carly just brought up. With those policies in place, I was going to ask, what will the superintendent's spending parameters be? And I think that is what we're going in the direction of Sheila's amendment. So I don't know if this has been discussed previous to the meeting, if this is coming from school committee members, if this is coming from the superintendent, and I tried to reach out and ask for some supporting documentation for this agenda item, only because I understand the response was, from you, Madam Chair, that the policies are the supporting documents, but the policies don't explain to me why they're on here, and who and why is recommending that they be suspended when we are currently in a spending freeze, particularly the procurement policy. Thank you.
Sure.
I'll speak to that, Marge. I put it on there. I asked for it because I've had a lot of taxpayers ask me about why are we in a deficit? What are we doing to alleviate the deficit, and what control do we have over the money? So I brought it out as you see it right there. Now, the rest of it is whatever we want to decide as to how much we want to reduce the amount of money that the superintendent can spend. But I don't see any problem with it because we can still spend whatever money we want as long as it is okayed by Marge and Sheila or the whole school committee. So that's why I brought it up, Erin.
Thank you, Mr. Cabral. And I certainly wasn't suggesting there was a problem with it. I think that anything that isn't, shouldn't go on the agenda for some reason should be on there. But I don't know who to direct my questions to if I don't know where this came from. And so that's why I wanted to find out, is this a superintendent recommendation? Is this a school committee member's recommendation? Is this the chair's recommendation? And so that's my starting point. So whoever can answer the rest of the questions, that would be great.
Well, Erin, if you want to know why I put it out, if I haven't told you exactly what it was, are there any other questions you want to ask of me as to why I did it?
I don't know what you mean. I just asked all my questions.
Well, all right, but I mean, have you asked all the questions of me as to why I put that on the agenda?
It doesn't matter to me who answers the questions. I just want to know the answers so I can
All right,
make
thank
an
you.
educated vote. Thank you.
Sheila?
Thanks. So I guess this is directed at both Carly and Erin since they asked the question. So going through the budget process with the consultant and going like line by line and finding out more things that we hadn't seen, like the consultants that we should have saw in the first place, some of the contracts, going through technology and realizing we hadn't been seeing the procurements that are actually in our policy, and with the tight constraints that our budgets are now facing, we're finding that some of the directors are handed over some invoices that we didn't know were outstanding. One, and two, that our budgets are really extremely tight, and we need to make sure that per our policy, we were seeing everything we should have saw. So that was like the consultants, a lot of the bids that went out, a lot of the vendor services we didn't see that we should have seen. And if you look at some of the backup to some of the backup to the memos for technology, we never saw a lot of those software purchases. So it's putting more constraints, but alleviate just so we have the knowledge, because we did say to temporary free spending that really didn't happen to the level that our expectations were. We thought we were going to see some write-ups of what was spent. We hadn't seen that. So this is kind of our way of trying to figure out kind of where we're spending money, what we're doing, and how it aligns to our spending. And this is part of the, we are responsible as a school committee for the financial oversight. And I feel that this is in our purview to do this, and we weren't following our policy to begin with, or the policy wasn't being followed. And since we do everything through policy, I thought this was appropriate.
Well,
Did that answer your question?
It does partly, but if I could just, yes, I guess, but if I could just respond to that.
Sure.
Sorry, I lost my thought. When you're talking about, okay, so one question I have to what you just said, Sheila, is if this is something that we want to put on the school committee, and in some cases just the chair and treasurer, what is the role of Diane Brennan and Mary King? I'm sorry.
So they were brought in to kind of oversee everything. They're not brought in to do our day-to-day kind of ins and outs of everything. That's not why we put them there. We're trying to find a CFO. I think this will be in place until we can get a CFO on board. We can get that person up and running with Mary King and Diane Brennan rolling off, and having this person have the clear direction that Mary King is going to provide us. I think right now we don't have that, and we can't ask Mary King, as she's a consultant, so we can't have her do it. I think right now my comfort level with what we have is not. I think we're finding new things out all the time, and I don't want to find out like through the back door, like the consultant at KMS. I had no idea until it was brought up. So some of the things I think we need to just get a handle on, kind of work together, kind of wrapping back around of where financially we are, what we're spending on. And so we can make a good decision and a good financial decision that impacts our taxpayers and our students.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I speak? May I speak?
I mean, of course you can. We had a discussion. Go right ahead.
So I understand that this is individual school committee members' desire, and certainly if you have the votes to implement this, that is a decision that you need to make. But there were a couple of things that I just need to address. So it has been said several times that there is, excuse me, concerns about invoices being handed in that we weren't following procurement rules, software purchases, and other purchases, I would remind the school committee that from probably sometime in March until sometime in November, the school committee granted me emergency authority to act in the best interest of the school district. That is what I did. I understand that there is some concern about, oh, well, we had another person, a staff person working at a particular building or whatever. But again, those were decisions that were made because I believe they were in the best interest of the district. I think two other points should be made that Diane Brennan and Mary King, who have come in and provided outstanding support to us and have taught us things that even we don't know, are projecting. Can everybody see me? Because I see, oh, okay. That Diane Brennan and Mary King are projecting, I'm looking at a document, they are projecting that we are likely to have an anticipated FY21 surplus of more than several hundred thousands of dollars, that we have a clean audit report from FY20. And again, I understand the school committee wanting to have oversight, but I want the conversation to be, oh, we just want oversight because we want to know, as opposed to casting aspersions as if under my leadership, we've done something that is wrong.
Dr. Bryce, Sarah, I see your hand up, but let me respond to him first, because Dr. Bryce and I did have this conversation, and I'm looking at it more as a group effort until we get a CFO. And we'll work together and we'll figure out what we need to do, and we'll bounce off each other. And I'm not, at least I'm personally looking at it from that perspective. That was the perspective I gave Dr. Bryce. So that is my personal perspective when we had the conversation. And I do think that Aaron is correct that there should be an end date. And I do think that Sheila's correct that the end date should be when we have a CFO on board, because then we have somebody there who's doing the job, and we can back off and let Dr. Bryce and the new CFO work it out. So I think that Dr. Bryce is definitely on point. So with that, I'll turn to Sarah because she has her hand up and she's muted. So, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this, I have to say, I agree with someone who's just finding out this plan now. I got to say that I agree that from not an inside perspective, it doesn't look great as to the committee's level of trust in Dr. Bryce. I'm wondering why two members of the committee are going to have final say over financial decisions and what the qualifications are. It doesn't seem to me the best way to go about this. I also wonder about the previous year's budgets. I mean, we keep hearing like there are things we didn't know about. There were this here and that there, which are very general. I think I would like to see the specifics of that, a list of all the things that are big surprises in the budgets. I'd like to see that list. I want to see what these big problems are, because you guys were on the budget committee for those budgets. So I'm just not sure why all of a sudden we're cutting Dr. Bryce's legs off at the knees in terms of running the district and having to go for permission for I mean, $1,000. That I don't understand it. It seems extreme, and it seems unnecessary. So if there's paper proof that you can show the rest of us who haven't been working with Mary King and Diane Brennan, I would really like to see it. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Carly?
Sarah was incredibly articulate, and I have similar concerns. $1,000 is a tiny amount in a budget of 58 some odd million. And I feel like forcing Dr. Bryce or anybody else is spending money to stop what they're doing and go seek the approval of two non-educators who I know are busy women seems like we're making it next to impossible for Dr. Bryce to be successful moving forward. It feels like I'm just going to say it, it feels like an effort to scapegoat Dr. Bryce for all the budget shortfalls, and I absolutely do not agree with this.
Well, I'm,
Madam Chair,
yeah,
is the amendment for reducing the amount to $1,000 that Erin started didn't happen, right? We're still on the first motion
it
to
hasn't.
suspend as it is right now, correct?
that's correct. And the amount,
That's in this thing there's no change in the amounts.
yeah. First of all, I made it very clear to Dr. Bryce that I am 100% behind him and what he does. It's $4,000 we're taking away. The amount right now is $5,000, and we're asking to take it away until such time as we have a CFO on board. And that's pretty much as simple as it gets. There's nothing nefarious. Sarah, if you want to sit down someday with Sheila or with Mary King, you can do that, and they can show you the things that you're asking for, but we're not going to do that here tonight. That information is very much available. Dr. Bryce is also correct. We gave him emergency powers, and he spent the money the best way he saw fit. And it's not a good thing to go backwards. It's a better thing to go forward. And we have tried twice now to hire a CFO, and we haven't been able to affect that yet. So when Dr. Bryce and I had the discussion after hearing from Mr. Cabral, it was made very clear that this was not a reflection of Dr. Bryce. This was a reflection of where we are and what we are as a community and what we want to move forward with. And that's a whole bunch of different things. But I don't think that, certainly not for me, that I don't think you're characterizing it the way I looked at it, number one. And number two, a difference between 4,000 and 5,000 and 1,000 is $4,000, and every single thing will go out to the school committee. So it's not, everybody has a budget. Everybody has to learn to stay in their budget until we have a CFO that can work with those budgets. And I'm not talking about Dr. Bryce. I'm talking about the community. I'm talking about all of us. I'm talking about the secretary who happens to want new notebooks, or somebody else who wants something that they didn't think to put in their budget. This is simply giving strength to the fact that you have to live within your budget. So we can say, well, we all agree on a freeze, but until we put it in writing, so to speak, until we vote on it, all we said is, please do that. And that's, for me, that's not good enough. So that's why I'm here tonight, agreeing with Vic. And that's all I'm going to say on the subject, except that I'm just not happy with what you're saying, anybody's saying about Dr. Bryce. Yes, Nikki.
I'm listening to you, Mrs. McBride, saying that we are a team, you know, as a community, at the school committee, the superintendent, the rest of the leadership, and the sort of district school community as a whole. We are a team, and we are responsible for managing a budget together, and I completely agree. But the message that is being sent by this vote is the opposite of that. And I'm another person that is coming to this news for the first time in this meeting. It seems that some people may have had a chance to sort of think through the details in terms of amount of money and decision makers and all of that stuff. I hear the message you're saying and how you're thinking, and I agree with you. We are all supposed to be a team working together, the 9 people on the school committee, all of the building and district leadership together with the same goal in mind, which is to do the best thing for our students within the budget. And I agree with Sheila, it is very tight and we need to be extremely careful. This action, to my mind, does not spread that message. I think the message is spot on. This is not the way to share that message.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Diane?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to point out one other piece that goes along with this. We have policy DJC, the bidding requirements policy, which is also connected to this. So if you're changing the amount here, it would impact the policy that's cross-referenced. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Thank you. Yes, Sarah.
So this is coming from a perspective of a new member. We keep saying policy, and I'm wondering why it didn't go before the policy committee.
Because when I talked to Dr. Bryce about it, after it wasn't about amending the policy. I think the policy speaks for itself. It was amended in 2017, and I think the policy works. But the policy works when we have a CFO, and Dr. Bryce has someone to work with to do that. He doesn't have that person right now. No, I'm not going to go there. Well, where I was going to go was, I remember when we went from 1,000 to 5,000, it was 1,000 for many, many, many years. And we thought that 1,000 wasn't enough, but we had a CFO sitting in an office down the hall from Dr. Bryce. And we don't have that right now. And I'm hoping that this is over in a month and we have somebody and we can move along. And then if the policy committee decides that they want to revisit that policy for any other reasons, they're most welcome to do that. But this wasn't about changing the policy. This was just about timeout until we get a CFO.
Okay.
So
Could I ask Dr. Bryce and Dr. Santa a question? What kind of operational impact will this have on your day-to-day business?
Well, right now, as has already been mentioned, we already have I try not to use the term spending freeze, but we have a protocol in place where anybody that wants to purchase anything has to go through multiple layers of approval. They have to get their principal's approval, and then it comes here and Joel Harrington, Diane Santa take a look at it, and then I take a look at it. The reality is, we did the same thing last year before we got into COVID. And it seems to work that when people know that their principal is looking at the requisition, that multiple people here are looking at the requisition, including myself, they start to get the message about making sure that they're making wise decisions. One other thing that I would also share is that we have been focused on spending down those restricted dollars, those federal dollars and the title grants, just to make sure that we are spending those dollars as well. You should spend those dollars before you spend operating dollars. I recognize this entire situation is complicated by the fact that we don't have a CFO. And as Mrs. McBride mentioned, we did speak about this. And again, this has to be a decision that the entire school committee makes. What I would just mention is that anything that happens is going to have an impact on our ability to purchase things and how quickly we get those things into the classroom. But whatever it is, we will adapt and we will do our best to make sure that we are getting supplies and materials into our teachers' hands and our staff's hands as soon as possible, regardless of what the decision is.
Thank you. I have to say too, I was actually an employee of the district during the last spending freeze. And yeah, it definitely does. When you don't have a ream of paper and it has to go through those channels, it does make you think twice. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, anybody else? Yes, Erin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one question for the superintendent, and that is, Dr. Bryce, when you are considering purchases at this point, is it a situation where due to the spending freeze and just in general with having Diane Brennan and Mary King here, that you would run purchases by them, that you would, that they would somehow be involved in that process? Because the reason I ask is, I understand what Sheila's saying, and I agree wholeheartedly that we have to be always thinking about fiscal responsibility. And that but I see the school committee as the watchdogs, and I'm more comfortable with having the people that we hire for the district to do that work. And so when everybody, or when certain people are saying, you know, this is because we don't have a CFO, it leaves me feeling confused, because I feel like we have hired Diane and Mary as financial consultants to fill that gap. So in my mind, when I was looking over all these materials, I was thinking these kinds of purchases would be something that they would be involved in at this point, because they are so involved at this point.
So let me clarify, because I think that's a great question. Diane Brennan and Mary King, their time is so valuable. We certainly wouldn't spend their time asking them, what do you think about a purchase, a $4,000 purchase of something? That to me would not be the best use of their time. The best use of their time is preparing budget documents, reviewing the organization, making sure that we're ready to make our case, not just to the school committee, but to the JFC. I can give you an example, real world example, right? So we needed to make a hire, right, of a part-time position because someone in the position went out on leave. And so as we're talking through, and people are saying, oh, well, we need to hire someone. My question was, are we hiring them off of operating? Because if that's the case, I'm not making that, I'm not gonna authorize that. Do we have other funding streams available? We found a federal funding stream to hire that individual. And as a result, we're gonna hire that person part-time. Those are the types of decisions when you have a spending freeze that you make all the time. And I can tell you, you know, we had a school that even in the midst of a spending freeze made a decision to purchase furniture that once I was informed, I had a conversation with that school leader, and I said, you know, this is a problem, right? It's a problem. And so it was not general funds. They were funds that the school had received. But in that regard, you know what, it looks like the school is ignoring the direction from the district office about making purchases. So I just had to have another conversation with that principal about the importance of making sure that we're not purchasing those items.
I understand. I think my point is more, I understand that. I mean, I know you're not going to go to them with, you know, a $1,050 purchase necessarily, but my point is just more to have it. I understand that other people on this call are saying this, and I feel the same, that it is more comfortable to me to have people that we are hiring in this type of a capacity to be overseeing this on a day-to-day micromanagement level, rather than that be school committee members and then only 2 school committee members at that. And it's not personal. I know that the 2 school committee members we're talking about here in this potential amendment that's coming up are completely smart and capable. It's just that they're not hired to do this level of micromanaging, I don't think. And so that makes me feel uncomfortable. My second thing, I know Sheila has her hand up, but just so I can get everything out of the way so I can be quiet. This is a question for the chairperson. I'm wondering why these 2 policies are put as one agenda item rather than 2.
Because I chose to put them as one. I didn't
So
choose.
so there's
separate.
no opportunity to vote for one. It's a package deal.
I presented it as a package deal. However, within this realm, if you wish to amend motions to make them separate motions, you can also do that by making amendments. So just because I'm asked the amendment, the motion is on this particular set of policies, does not mean that you can't make amendments to it. So, and that's just really what Robert's rule allows you to do. So, but I have to move on because Sheila and Vic have their hand up and I'm not sure who wants to go first.
I'll go, I guess.
Let
I'll
Sheila
go
go.
first.
through. She's already-
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify. So Mary King, who is our consultant hired by the school committee, was actually brought on to reconcile our actuals, reconcile our actuals and help with the FY22 budget. She wasn't brought on and then tell us, like, help us with processes, making sure, helping Bryce with recommendations on staffing levels in the office in terms of financial people. She had realized, because she has a full-time job and she's a consultant, she had realized that we needed somebody in the seat. So that's why Diane Brennan came on to help Joel, because she has tons of years experience, but she's not there every day. And she was just there to assist Mary to help her with cleaning up 20 actuals, going back 19, and then helping with 22 budget. So they are not the day-to-day people. So that was why, while, we need somebody prior to that CFO, like I hope a CFO gets hired because then we can get them to get onboarded by Mary King and Diane Brennan, and we can get our processes in place that Dr. Bryce and Mary have worked on. But right now that's not the case. So my concern is that we haven't, even prior to COVID, there have been things that we haven't seen. We do have a process issue with going out to bid for vendors, and we're trying to work through that with Mary's help. Mary King's helping us. So we are putting things in place to kind of clean up a process because we don't have somebody in place. And this will help because we need to understand and we need to have visibility of really what's going on. And I don't feel we're getting that. And that's just me as the treasurer. Hopefully that made sense about what Mary and Diane are doing.
So just,
Marge, you're not on.
I'm sorry, I just had some company come in, so I muted. Go ahead.
I just want to know what the process is now, Marge. I mean, we've discussed this probably to the end. And the one comment I have to make, and people may disagree, and I really don't care, but I was elected by the town of Bristol to get a good education for all of those students, but also to watch after the budget. And those are the 2 tasks that I look at. And I answer to the voters and the taxpayers of this town. And that's one of the reasons why I brought this up. Now, the next thing is, What is the process? Do we vote on this? Do we put an amendment? How do we go through the process? Thank you.
No, Tara has something she wants to say and she hasn't spoken yet. And then I'll entertain the motion. Tara.
Thank you. I'm going to keep this brief. I feel that I agree with Erin. We are watchdogs for this process. It is our responsibility. It's our fiscal responsibility. I've said it before. It is our responsibility to have financial oversight. I have spoke with Mary King on my own. I have done my homework. I know that the day-to-day operations without a CFO are difficult when you do not have a person in that position. And I think that this just adds a step of transparency, and it adds strength to our public questions that are happening and our perspectives. Again, these are not decisions that are made lightly. I don't think any of us are looking at this as irresponsible. I think this is for the strength. This is to make our district better and stronger. I think everybody's goal here is the same, and that is to give our children the best education that we can. And I believe that at this time, this is necessary.
Thank you, Tara. Now we have a motion on the floor and we have a second. That motion does not include what some of you were concerned about, and that being the fact that Dr. Bryce would have to consult with myself and Mrs. Ellsworth to make purchases between 1,000 and 5,000 and seek permission from the school committee if it's above 5,000. We can vote on this motion, or I will entertain an amendment to the motion, but only one. So Mrs. Ellsworth, do you want to make that amendment, or do you just want to let it stand where it is right now? Because where it is right now makes it very clear to the community there that there is indeed a freeze. And I honestly think that it hamstrings Dr. Bryce more to leave the motion as it stands, because then it doesn't give him any opportunity to spend any money, and I don't agree with that. So
That's why I made the motion, because I think we still need to operate. We just need to oversight. So I don't think suspending it's the right thing to do. I don't think it's the right thing for the district. So I will make the motion again. Diane, you ready? So I'm going to make a motion to amend the procurement policy DJ to change all goods and services that are $1,000 or more to be signed off by the chair and the treasurer, and anything $5,000 or more by the full school committee, and all capital on hold pending our consultant's recommendation.
Okay, I need to stop you right now before you even get a second. We already have you, Mrs. Ellsworth, you made that motion and then it was seconded. And then you made a motion to suspend the policies and it was seconded. So the motion to suspend the policies needs to be withdrawn.
Okay.
So whoever made the motion, you made the motion, you're going to withdraw the suspension. Who made the second to suspend? Tara, you're going to withdraw that suspension.
Okay.
And now Sheila, you're making the original motion that you made, where you're saying that for any purchases over 1,000 up to 5,000, the chair and the treasurer need to sign off. Anything $5,000 or more has to be approved by the school committee. And you are suspending all capital, I believe you said.
Yes.
Until further notice. Is that correct?
Until pending our consultant's recommendations.
Okay, that's the motion that's made on the floor. Now we need a second.
Good. Mary Ann, can I amend that a little bit to say until we have a CFO on board?
Oh, until we have a CFO on board.
Can, hold on, Mary Ann, I tried following you.
All right, wait. Okay,
So,
Sheila's making a motion that until we have a CFO
no,
on
wait,
board,
back up, sorry. So the motion was withdrawn.
the motion to
Yes.
suspend was withdrawn.
Okay,
It was withdrawn by the person who made it, which was Sheila, and Tara, who seconded it.
yeah, okay.
All right, now Sheila's made a new motion.
I got that part. I got that
Okay,
part. I just
okay,
didn't. finish.
until a CFO is, has been hired and is working in the district. Sheila's motion is for purchases over 1,000 up to 5,000. The chair and the treasurer will sign off. Anything over 5,000 will be approved by the school committee. And the next part of your motion, Sheila, was that you're suspending all capital until you get the full report from the consultant.
Yeah, the consultant's recommendations.
All right. That's the motion that is now on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
Tara.
Tara
Second.
made a second.
All right, I'm going to call for a vote now because we've been discussing this for.
Wait, I'm sorry, Mrs. McBride. So this is not both policies in one motion. You said that we needed. So what?
It is everything.
both policies.
The policies, it's just a change to the policies on a temporary basis.
Oh, because we haven't discussed the change to the other one, the fund balance, the minimum fund balance policy. So there's no discussion about that one?
There was no change.
All right.
Well, I have a question about the second policy, if I could ask that.
You may ask that.
At first this made sense to me that we would suspend this because of the two, I'm presuming this is why it was recommended for suspension, because we don't want to have to pay back that 2% in 1 year. So we're suspending it so that it's okay to not have that 2 and 2. Is that correct?
No,
So why are we looking for this to be suspended?
I believe Mrs. Ellsworth explained that when she talked about capital expenses. Those are restricted funds in there. Sheila, do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, so it all ties together, Nikki. It's the capital. We got a form from Dr. Bryce that actually explained it was in one of our packages, that explained the capital, and the capital projects are actually laid into there, and so is in our fund balance. So you are correct. We don't want to pay the 2 and 2 back, and we may need to go back and take some of the fund balance out, and we don't want it to be spent on capital.
Okay, because my confusion about why it needed to be suspended was because in the policy statement 5A, it says, should the actual amount assigned for cash flow fall below the desired range, the school committee shall create a plan to restore the fund, which to me, it seemed to make more sense to just put a plan in place to restore it rather than to suspend it. I didn't know why we couldn't just follow it as it was written.
Because I think we should wait till the CFO is in place to do all of that.
Before
With the
coming up with that
recommendation
plan.
of, yes, and the recommendation of the consultant will include the fund balance, our fund balance as well.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, one more clarification, but we're not, you guys are not, sorry, you guys are not voting on the suspension because that was withdrawn, right? We're just discussing the changes, Mary Ann?
Yeah, all they're voting on right now is the motion that Mrs. Ellsworth just made regarding the amount of money that needs approval and suspending the fund balance until you have the consultant's recommendation and until we have a CFO on board.
Okay.
So we are voting on both in one motion.
Correct. So because everybody has had differing opinions and different questions, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. So Sarah,
No.
Tara,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes. Yes.
Vicky,
No.
Victor,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Carly,
No.
and I vote yes. That's a 5-4 vote in favor.
Did Aaron vote?
Aaron didn't vote.
I'm sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Aaron did not vote.
Okay.
You know why, Aaron? You keep switching with Mr. Ballard here. Your squares on I'm sorry.
Oh, I vote nay.
Okay, then it's a 5-4. And the motion carries. All right. Now, well, thank you, everybody. Now we're going to move on to the technology presentation. All of you have that. All of you should have received that. And Dr. Bryce?
Yes, ma'am. All right, so as Rose and Ryan set that up, you have a technology report that staff and the administrative staff, Rose and her team spent a lot of time working through. We've actually titled it Advancing and Sustaining Academic Technology and Technology Infrastructure in Bwrsd, only because it is impossible to be a high-performing school district without the use of instructional technology or academic focused technology. And then if you think about all of the work on the back end, all of that is technology laden. Two other points that I would like to make. One is that because technology is, continues to evolve, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are putting technology tools in the hands of teachers and students that allow them to meet with success. And then finally, we also need to be very, very concerned, and our insurer, the trust is concerned about school districts and the quality of their technology infrastructure, so that hopefully we can prevent being the target of ransomware attacks and other things like that. And so with that being said, Ryan and Rose, would you start your presentation?
Thank you very much, Dr. Bryce. Thank you, Madam Chair, for having me here tonight. Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak with you about advancing and sustaining academic technology and technology infrastructure in Bristol Warren School District. I'm Rose Muller, and I've served as your technology director for about 5 years now. The purpose of technology in Bristol Warren is to provide our community with current, cost-effective, and quality technological tools and services that support both teaching and learning and operational excellence. Technology provides us with a platform to organize lessons and resources so that students can access them at school and at home. It provides our teachers with tools like interactive text, videos, collaboration, and presentation tools, and they use these in their lessons. It also provides access to programs, coursework, industry tools, real-world learning applications, and outside experts. Technology also provides access to real-time data on how our students are performing. It helps teachers in determining their next steps in instruction, and it also provides them with resources for enrichment and for interventions. And as a result of investing in technology over the last number of years, Bristol Warren has been able to ensure that all staff and students have access to devices and projection equipment. It has addressed the challenge and urgency of distance learning. It has expanded student access to career and technical education and online elective courses. And ultimately, it has prepared our students for the emerging technologies of their future. At the bottom of this slide are some examples of some great work by our students. And I encourage you to take some time after this presentation, maybe later on tonight or tomorrow, to click on the links and see some of their products. We have 4 categories of devices in Bristol Warren, and this chart depicts those categories. Desktops and laptops are purchased with a 3-year warranty. We expect a 5-year lifespan. If you look over to the right of this chart, you can see that currently most of our desktops and laptops are more than 5 years old. When they're this age, they become unreliable. And more importantly, as Dr. Bryce indicated in the beginning of this presentation, they become a risk on our network. When new security patches come out, the software on these old devices cannot support these patches, and it becomes a security risk on the network. Nefarious people or organizations can gain access to our network by means of these old devices and really wreak havoc. In some cases, they have held organizations' data hostage and have demanded the organization pay a ransom. The next category is our Chromebooks. We have 6,356 Chromebooks. They are leased with a 3-year lease. They have a 3-year warranty from Dell, and they support a 3-year lifespan. In Bristol Warren, we work to have the Chromebooks have a 4-year lifespan, as that helps with economizing the 3-year lease with an extra year. And it also helps with our refresh pattern for students. We're working to provide the one-to-one devices for all of our students. And if we can make the 4-year refresh cycle, it will allow us to provide a device to a student in grade 1. That device would stay with the student until the end of grade 4. Then we would give a second device to the student in grade 5. That device would stay with the student until the end of grade 8. And finally, in the 9th grade, the student would get their next device, which would finish off their high school career. We also provide Chromebooks to teachers. We provide them to teaching assistants and long-term substitute teachers. A majority of our current fleet of Chromebooks are in the extra 4th year of life and also in the 5th year of life. Chromeboxes are the next category of devices that we support. We have 156 of these devices, and these are an economical option to a more expensive desktop machine. They have a 1-year warranty and about a 4 to 5 year lifespan. And we use these primarily for the LCD panels at Kickamuit Middle School, which allows teachers to project and interact using a wireless keyboard and mouse. We also use them for digital signage throughout the district. This is a low-cost option to a very expensive digital signage solution that's available in most places. These are also an aging fleet, with 54 of them being end of life and a potential security risk for our network. We have 682 iPads. These devices have a 3-year warranty and about a 5-year lifespan. Prior to the pandemic, there were 8 iPads in each K-2 classroom, and each teacher of these grades were assigned an iPad. There's also a cart of iPads in each library for the buildings to share. During the pandemic, we collected all the iPads in these classrooms and distributed them to our kindergarten and our pre-kindergarten students so that they could work remotely. Most of the iPads are 5 years old or older, and they too are a potential security risk for our network. The last row gives us the totals of devices, and the percentages are over on the right-hand side under the year of the life cycle. And a point that we wanted to make, that if we did not lease the 2,800 Chromebooks last year that came in the beginning of this year and in January, 95% of all of our devices would be in year 4 and 5 of life. Next slide, please, Ryan. This next slide gives us a good visual of our Chromebook 5-year plan. The grade levels are over on the left, and you follow the grade levels by going up one and diagonally to the right. So for example, if you look at the FY 2021 column and you look at the first grade row, you would see, you would follow that grade to the column of FY 22 and the grade 2 row. So it goes up on the diagonal that way. The devices in grades K, the staff devices and the loaners would stay in the location. They don't go up sequentially. So what this chart does is it allows us to move the green blocks, which is the year one refresh, and reconfigure the one-to-one distribution plan based on budgetary allowances. For example, we planned to distribute the Chromebooks to grades 1 and 2 this year when we received them in January. Now we are, because of the budgetary constraints, we haven't distributed them yet. And we are rethinking this plan because we may need to reprioritize the seniors not having a device that's 5 years old. And we're rethinking our K-2 plan. Do they really need a one-to-one device, or can we go back to a bank of devices in the classroom and economize in that way? Next slide, please, Ryan. So a peripheral is a device that connects a computer system and it adds functionality. An expanded purchase this year was that of document cameras. We have 264 document cameras, and they allow projection of a worksheet or a piece of paper to the class. They also serve as a webcam for the teachers. So these came in really, really handy for distance learning during the pandemic. We also have scanners, LCD panels, webcams, projectors, and HDMI switches. The IT department in Bristol Warren also supports our internal telephone system. All rooms are equipped with a networked telephone, which allows the capability of dialing internally with a 4-digit extension. We have 43 mobile lines at about $45 per line per month, and we support 39 multi-function copy machines. These copy machines have print, scanning, and cloud printing capabilities. So a user can print a document to the machine, continue teaching, and then when they have their break or their prep period, they can go to the machine, scan their badge, and that will release the secure print job to them. This copier lease expires in June of 2022. And on this slide is a chart which shows you where the copy machines are located. In Bristol Warren, we are really, really proud of our clever single sign-on portal. What this portal does is it allows our users to access our resources with a one-click sign-on. It is more secure in that they're not looking around for passwords or storing passwords in obvious places like under your keyboard. And it's efficient that the applications that are in the portal open with one click. All of the resources that are in the clever single sign-on portal have been evaluated by the Student Data Privacy Consortium. This is an organization used by many districts in Rhode Island, and it ensures that all of our resources are abiding by the Rhode Island student data privacy laws. It helps in ensuring that our students' data is safe and it's not being sold for bad reasons or poor reasons. So this slide is a slide that shows you all of the great educational resources that our staff and students have access to. They're grouped by category, and these are live links on this slide. So if you want to take a look again when you get a chance, please do so. And in the bottom left-hand corner is a link to an example of some great student work using these resources. This slide is a slide that lists live links as well. And this is what we call our operational software. Some of this software was implemented in order to take the place of a very labor-intensive paper process, or it is software that helps us to manage and secure our network. So none of the information that I spoke about in the previous slides would be possible without a robust network. So we need to think of our network as our highway, and everything else on the highway as our vehicles. So Bristol Warren has an enterprise network, which begins with our internet service provider, and the name of that provider is Ocean. They provide us with our virtual firewall. We have the rights to manage that firewall. We can configure it. And we also have a virtual router that transports into the main data center at Kickamuit Middle School. We then have a trunk that is a 1 gigabit pipe that goes to a Cox circuit that gives us 1 gigabyte of transport between buildings. So that Cox transport is our internal network, and then it goes back up through the data center at Kickamuit to the internet. So in describing this robust enterprise network is that it is 7 buildings. It's connected through a fiber VRF cloud. That cloud is provided by Cox and by Ocean. We have a secure enterprise network infrastructure. We support approximately 10,000 endpoints and approximately 3,800 users. And the chart at the bottom of this page, or this slide, gives you a good idea of the number of trouble tickets that have been closed by our IT team for the past 3 years. So a little bit more about the network. We have a physical network and we have what's called a virtual network. The virtual network is configured and it rests on the physical network. The virtual network saves us money because we don't have to purchase the hardware, and we can create the virtual machines and the virtual servers, and they sit on the physical network. So on the physical side, we have servers, switches, access points, and storage devices. And the virtual network provides us with our domain controllers, which allow us to authenticate onto the network, and virtual servers and machines. It has our antivirus protection, our backup solution, and we do have cloud backup for our very critical data. So for network improvements, we have planned network improvements for each year, and the chart on this slide gives you an idea of what is planned. It shows you the year, gives a description of the improvement, gives you an estimated cost and a projected cost using the E-rate program. I'll talk about the E-rate program in a few minutes, but for this next year, we're planning the construction of the fiber network and the district switch upgrades. The total cost for this is almost $390,000. The projected E-rate discount cost would be a little over $200,000. In 2023, the plan is to replace the backup storage and start the first phase of the wireless infrastructure refresh. About 6 or 7 years ago, the Rhode Island Department of Education provided schools with grant money to create the wireless infrastructure to meet the needs of online state testing. It was really great that all the schools were able to deploy wireless in the buildings, but then when the time comes for refresh, guess what happens? There's no grant money and it becomes a local expense. So the estimated cost for this is about $313,000 with a projected E-rate discount price of about $162,000. In 2024, we plan for phase 2 of the wireless infrastructure refresh and the phase 1 of backup network power refresh. Cost is about $304,000 and a projected E-rate cost of about $152,000. And in 2025, we plan for the phase 2 of the network power refresh and some network security modernization in looking at different firewall options. And the cost of this is about $162,000 and a projected E-rate cost of about $81,000. In 2026, we're looking to start the server refresh again, which we just did this past year, and phase 3 of the network power refresh, and also the outdoor wireless refresh, which we also just did this past year. This next slide gives us a chart of the type of our network equipment and its life cycle. So you can see that most of our network equipment is 5 or more years old. The IT department also oversees the district databases and mandated reports. At the local level, the big database is Aspen, and we customize that when we can. This year, we implemented the attestation and Binex workflows. We're looking at implementing an RTI module within Aspen. And like I said, we're looking to always configure that customly, or do custom configurations for Aspen to suit our needs. So you can also see a listing of all the state reports that we submit. Our data goes up to the state on a nightly basis, and report sign-offs are done on a quarterly, semi-annually, or annual basis, depending on whenever the state wants Dr. Bryce to verify that our data is pristine. We also submit federal data reports. The Civil Rights Data Collection is one of the reports, and another one is the Perkins Comprehensive Needs Assessment Report. So the federal E-rate program is a really great program. It is a bit complicated, and it is somewhat of akin, I like to say it's akin to kind of doing your taxes if you own a business. So based on free and reduced lunch status, it offers districts up to a 90% discount on internet access, eligible equipment, and special construction. So Bristol Warren's discount is a 50% discount. The process is a simplified description of the process. I had a slide of the whole process in here, and Dr. Bryce took it out because it was really complicated. But a simplified version of the process is that we need to plan in February on what we are going to be upgrading by the following July. So we issue an RFP, which is posted on the E-rate site, and only eligible vendors can bid on that RFP. We then need to go through a prescriptive evaluation process and select a vendor, file the forms within a certain period of time. That gets reviewed by the E-rate folks and hopefully approved. As the process continues, there's more forms to be filled out within certain windows, more verification, and then the cycle starts all over again for the following fiscal year. So you can have a number of E-rate years going at the same time. Supporting all this technology takes a really dedicated team, lots of love, lots of effort. So we have 5 positions and 1 secretary. I serve as your technology director. We have a vacant network manager position. Ryan is our systems administrator. Randy is our PC analyst. Kate Mills is our data manager, and Terry is our secretary. We have an excellent college intern program. We have Justin Pacheco, he attends CCRI, Austin Medeiros attends BCC, and Andrew Carson attends New England Tech. We also use contracted services like all the other districts in the state, as this level of expertise is just not available in a team who does tech support in schools. Jim Lass serves as our network engineer. Jim Dillon helps with our databases. The E-rate online organization helps with our E-rate consulting, and I already spoke about the data privacy folks. So I was asked to do a comparison of our staffing in our technology department to other Rhode Island districts. And I want you all to know that it's a little bit challenging to do a comparison of technology in schools because one district is not the same as another. It's not apples to apples. But for this exercise, we chose to use student enrollment as the comparison point. So I reached out to my colleagues and asked them for some key data points for their technology staffing models. As you can see, Bristol Warren is the first row of the chart. We have a bit over 7,000 devices, with most of them being over 4 years old. It is more challenging to support an older fleet of devices. We have 6 staff members, we have interns and contractual services, as I mentioned in the last slide. Barrington is close in our enrollment. They have about 5,000 devices and 6 staff members. Dave Barrows, their technology director, told me that they're looking to add another tech position in next year's budget, and they better not look at my team. Charahoe is another district that is close in enrollment. They have 4,500 devices and 9 staff members. Additionally, they have a tech coach. Johnston is a comparable district as far as enrollment goes. They have a little over 5,000 devices and 7 IT staff members. Interestingly, 4 of those members are teachers who work as technicians under the teacher contract. So Portsmouth is a neighboring district with a lower enrollment than us. They have about 3,700 devices and 7 IT staff members. And additionally, they have 2 tech coaches. And finally, West Warwick has about 4,500 devices with 7 IT staff members. So we have a lot of great things going on with technology with Bristol Warren, but we do have our challenges as well. One challenge is refining and annually updating our 5-year technology plan. As priorities and budgets change, the plan needs to change because we don't have an established revenue source in our annual budget for technology. We also need to continue to advance and sustain our network and our system security. This includes balancing security with privacy, keeping up with security, and eliminating those old devices that endanger our system. We do have issues with retaining high-skilled tech staff. For example, we have a network manager position that has been vacant for over a year simply because we cannot pay what this job pays somebody in private industry. And finally, we need to expand our professional development and our help desk access for our students, for our staff, and for our parents. We do have a number of policies that support best practice. We have our one-to-one device policy guide, our equipment policy, our responsible use policy, both for staff and for students, and also website protocols. We're working on some additional policies to guide our work. This includes a data governance policy, a written information security program, and this guides us in securing our physical and digital files. And it also provides guidance in the event of a data breach, and also a policy for at-home provisions. So at this point, I really want to thank you very, very much for your time. I know it's a lot of information in a very short time. And I also want to thank you very much for this opportunity to share what we do every day and that we love to do for Bristol Warren. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Rose. That was wonderful. It's been a while since we saw that in one package. So before I take any questions from the audience, I would like to take questions from the school committee. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, Carly.
I actually had a comment, not actually any questions. I just wanted to thank Rose and the rest of the technology team for the incredible amount of work that they put into this presentation. And also just to reiterate how having all of the tech that we have in place and really allowed us to pivot so quickly when we all went into quarantine in the beginnings of COVID. And I don't think enough kudos or attention has been paid to that, because I think it went unnoticed, and I was trying to figure out why. And I think it was because it happened in such a sort of seamless way. I mean, gosh, over a couple of days, we were able to distribute one-on-one, whether it was iPad or Chromebooks, to elementary kids who hadn't taken them home. Many of the middle schoolers and high school kids already had them, and buying those document cameras made it possible for us to have the hybrid model. I mean, gosh, I look around the country and so many districts all over the country struggled, and we didn't. And I think that has a large part to do with the foresight of our administration, and also with all the hard work that Rose and her team has undertaken. I used to be a tech skeptic, but not anymore. Thank you very much for all of your hard work. And again, I'm so proud of how quickly our district was able to take care of the needs of our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Bryce, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, so I too would like to thank Rose for her leadership and the rest of her team for the tremendous work that they've done. And they do this every single day. But certainly I think to Carly's point about the transition in COVID, it is clearly something that many other districts, many larger districts all across this country have been unable to do as of yet. And we did it. It is not without the occasional hiccup, but by and large, it has been something from an operational perspective that we are certainly very pleased with. And we know that there have been some kids that have been successful. There are some other kids that are sort of in the middle, and some kids that are struggling. Hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll get more of our kids back into buildings if the CDC changes guidance and folks get vaccinated, and we can get back to face-to-face instruction for more of our students. But kudos to our tech team. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Bryce.
I see you, Dr. Santa, but Sarah had her hand up first. No? All right, Dr. Santa.
I just wanted to thank Rose and also bring out the fact that when Rose came to the district, one of the things that was most impressive is that she had a vision for where the district should be going. She had a vision for the staff that she would hire, for the protocols that she would put in place so that we would keep everyone safe and keep moving forward. So I think that's a big reason why we were able to develop the infrastructure that we have and to keep things going and to be shovel ready when it came time for distance learning. So thank you, Rose, and to all of your staff.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yes, Nikki.
Rose, thank you, and to your whole team. As everybody has said, this, I mean, just watching that alone, it felt like so much to me that it's extremely impressive that you guys do it so seamlessly. I had a couple of questions. One of them is about the development of the 5-year plan. I can imagine that sort of planning out the sort of timeline and life of Chromebooks is probably the most laborious, but probably the easiest part. Is there state level guidance about the sort of network stuff, security, privacy, data management, those sort of bigger, I mean, technology changes so quickly where it comes to issues like data and privacy and security. Are there state level supports that can help you guys with that as you make this 5-year plan?
There aren't any formal state level organizations in that respect, but we do have a Rhode Island tech educator group that gets together and collaborates on those issues. And that's how the Student Data Privacy Consortium came about, because we realized that as educators are using all of these free apps, that they're not really free. That, you know, they're taking and harvesting our kids' data. So we were able to get together in that respect, Mrs. Piper, and collaborate and get this organization to evaluate our different apps and get a contract with them prior to using them. We're always looking at network security protocols. So it's ongoing. All that's just kind of baked into our job. But as far as the lifespan, there are industry standards, and I did mention them. They are typically a 3-year for a machine, but we do take very good care of our machines here in Bristol Warren. So we have been able to get more years out of them. But the concern is that some of them, primarily at the high school at this point, are so old that we're not going to be able to run the software on them anymore because there's just not enough horsepower. And also, keeping them secure so that we don't have that hole in the network that can allow unauthorized access.
So, and Mrs. Piper, 2 other points. One, our insurance carrier, the trust, does a lot of work around network and internet security for its members. And so they host professional development. They provide information about things that districts should do. And so that is something that I've seen, that I passed along to Director Muller, and she's been able to participate in that. The other thing is that the Rhode Island Army National Guard, one of their charges is to look at internet security for government operations in the state. And so they're also another resource that we can look at. But it is absolutely imperative that we stay as prepared as possible so that we do not become a target of those bad actors utilizing the internet. And all it takes is one member of our staff to click on an attachment in an email that it was sent seeking to spread that. And so those are the types of things that we just have to be extra vigilant about.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bryce. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Sheila?
Yes, so on the technology provides access to real-time data. That slide says on how our students are doing next steps in learning and resources for enrichment and intervention. What does that consist of? Is that programs? Like, does it show how the programs are doing and how the students that are using that programs do? What is that technology access to real time? What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm going to start and then turn it over to Diane. So as we know, we have a number of different programs or diagnostic software. So I think this is iReady, and it would give information about students' performance on either an assignment.
Oh, I thought that this was like an overarching software that pulls everything together.
No, that would almost be like a data warehouse. No, but this is right in the program.
Okay.
Yeah. And many of the programs have that feature where they can give you feedback.
Where I'm kind of getting at is I think that's what we need to tie into the financials to show kind of how much our programs are, what's our, proficiency rate, and how are we proceeding, and if the program is efficient or not. The other thing is I was looking at the device and year of life cycle. I know we purchased 2,800. It says 2,783.
Yeah, tell them, Rose.
I knew you would catch that, Ms. Ellsworth. I knew it. There's 17 devices that came damaged, so we're waiting for those to be given.
Okay, and then what happens to because we only have, and I noticed that the number of students in the report that we gave JSC actually has us having 3,185 students, not 3,231 students. But I was wondering how, we have, so including that, and if you add in those 7 Chromebooks, we have 6,400 or 6,356 Chromebooks. What are we doing with the year 5? And we only have 3,185 students plus staff. So
The year 5 Chromebooks are end of life. So they're not going to be supported anymore by Google at the end of this school year. So currently we're trying to collect them. A lot of them were given out during the pandemic. They still work, but they're very slow. And so we're trying to get our arms around all of them. And what we're doing is we're taking them and we're harvesting them for parts. The screens on those can still be used. So we're going to be using those for screen replacements and in the non-touch model that we just purchased. So we'll be taking those out of circulation, but we just have not done that yet.
And I know that the prior director of finance had started an asset management because with the Chromebooks, are we still doing that? Because it sounds like, I just don't know. I guess I don't understand how we can have that many, like I understand the harvesting, but I'd like to understand like what are out, what are really truly missing? Are we, is it really, we have the 2,800, we only need 1,000 more? And like, how does that all kind of tie in? Because I just feel like when you look at that 6,356 and you look, we have 3,100,
So
students.
we do have a lot in what we call our warehouse, because the ones that we refreshed this year from the grade levels, 5, 6, 7, what did we do? We did 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. So we brought those year 4 in. So we have those in what we're calling our warehouse. We haven't gotten rid of them yet.
Yeah, because I mean, remember, every time we add these, because we're leasing them and every time we do, we just added $282,000 to our operating. So I'm trying to figure out like why, did we really need to buy the 2,800, or could we have done 1,800 because we had, I mean, I think that this is part of it. If you look at that 6,356, it's kind of a shocking number.
So it is a shocking number, but that's why we actually had to break it out so that the public, the school committee and the public would actually see the number of devices that are end of life. And so if we go back, if you look at there's a slide that talks about all the software that we operate. So
yeah, I have a question about that too.
Right.
Okay.
So the issue for the operation of that software is that the devices actually need to be a little faster. And what we noticed in the spring was that all of our devices were not actually operating as quickly as possible. And so
we would be getting a form that says you're going to retire 1,000 assets
and
then use it for parts.
We will give you that form sometime this spring, and we're going to take a number of those devices offline.
Okay.
Now, to the point, we actually want to harvest the parts where we can, so that we then have those parts available if a student drops their Chromebook, it's not in the case, and they crack the screen, that we can go ahead and make that replacement.
Okay, and I don't see on here like the Apple TVs or the Macs at the high school, some of the other things. Is it listed somewhere else in this report?
No, I just didn't put it on this presentation, but I do have that. I do have the inventory I can give to you.
Are we going to refresh those? Like, are those on a refresh list? I know teachers like the boards, and I guess they're not compatible with Chromebooks. So do we have something that shows kind of how we interact with the teachers, what the teachers find useful, what our next steps are to move forward in the 5-year plan?
So the projection has been a challenge in the district for the past couple of years. We do have the LCD panels at the middle school that the middle school teachers like. We proposed during the beginning of this budget season, we proposed to put those panels at the high school as well.
Are those the TVs?
Yes, the TVs, yes, with the Chromeboxes. And that came with a price tag of, I think, of $166,000. So that's one of the things that we took off the wish list, if you will. And at the elementary schools, they're using the projection device, and they seem to be, as far as
I guess the Chromebooks don't they're not compatible, so they can't interact with them. That feature is not existent. They can only project with it. So part of, I guess, the usability of that smart board isn't being used. So I don't know if we can look at that.
Yeah, but the smart boards at the elementary, we had already taken those. We weren't using the smart boards and the full range of capabilities. That is something that we weren't using when I walked in the door, and we haven't increased that in the midst of COVID. One of the reasons why we bought document cameras for all of our classrooms is because the document cameras are compatible with the Chromebooks and do give teachers that ability to both display a document on the wall, and also they could use it to show what's on their Chromebook. I think to your point about the 5-year plan and what teacher preference is, I think you take that into account, but I also do not think that is the only rationale for the decision you make, because I think projectors are costly. The bulbs are really costly. And I think it's an old technology. I think the flat panels, right, which you call TVs, but they're really flat panels, seem to be much more. I think the folks at the middle school actually like them. We tried it at the high school. We didn't get a lot of.
They're in the way though. They like take up a lot of space. So I don't see them going into an elementary school. The kids are going to knock into them. It's
yeah.
I don't know.
But those are all the decisions that we need to make as we refine the 5-year plan.
Okay. So the operating software, when I was looking through the budget, I didn't see some of these priced out that roll up into our budget. So I couple of things. One is I looked at like what the vendors are that are going to expire. So I know that we had like Microsoft, that contract expired in November and it was 28,000. Are we going to increase that? Should we expect to see a contract for that, the renewal? It said November in our vendor contract list.
Yes, the Microsoft agreement is done through the consortium with the Rhode Island districts. So actually Bwrsd is the organization that goes to bid every I think it's every 3 years for Microsoft.
Okay, but we should still see it because it hits our financials.
Yes.
Yep. And we have it. So I want to make sure like we see that there's VMware that's up in March. There's Aruba supports, that's 23,000, that's up in February. That was up in February. So I just want to make sure that we're kind of seeing these. We do another checklist to make sure they're on the budget, because I didn't see some of these on the budget line items that you had provided. I just don't want anything to get missed.
Okay.
And then the other thing is for the consultants that we hired, the James Lass, I never saw those, and I don't see them anywhere on our FY22 budget line item. It was the network engineer, the 25,000.
Yeah, you're not going to see them on the FY22 because those are some of the reductions in contractual services that we're making. And so that's why
So you're getting rid of the network engineer, the database engineer, the student data privy evaluation consortium.
So if it's in the consortium, we're not getting rid of it, but the cost of that is in one of the technology line items.
Yeah, I don't see it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I think I don't see it, and I never saw the service contract. So I just want to make sure that we're seeing the service contracts, we're accounting for them in 22, because I mean, it's going to be really tight. And if we're missing things, we got to make sure that we have the right thing.
Absolutely.
And I also think that we need to make sure we tie in the software with the education plan and make sure that we're accounting for all the software we're using, what's the proficiency, how is it ranking with our kids, to make sure that we're spending kind of every dollar in the right manner for our kids. The other thing is the copier. I looked at the invoice. Some of the numbers don't, like Colt Andrews has 4 printers per the invoice. So just if you can go back and just fix the copy machines.
That, I'll have to look at that, Ms. Zeltzer.
Yeah, that's the contract we just signed. So that's how I had it. So, and in the number of IT staff, you should probably include kind of what we have for contracts, consultants, the number of devices, because we're going to get rid of, if we're going to retire the old ones, you should probably take that down. And then the 3 interns, if we can just add that to the FTEs. But thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much for your feedback. I appreciate it.
Rose, before I go to anyone else, really, this is the first time I've seen it this complete in a very long time, and it helps to give me a very good understanding of where we are and where we need to go. So thank you. I'm sure this took some time, but I really do appreciate the things that you do. Vic.
Rose, how many Chromebooks were actually used this past, well, are in use right now?
I'd have to get back to you with that information.
Well, I mean, every student has one, is that correct?
Yes, but we also have teaching assistants. We have long-term substitute teachers.
Teacher
We have,
fellows.
yeah.
So we really don't know how many we have out there, is that correct? Is that, can I make that statement?
No.
Why can't I? We don't know.
So you can, we can give you an approximate number right now. We'll give you a definitive number tomorrow.
Would you give me an approximate number then?
So I would say we've got 3,900 Chromebooks that are out right now.
And we've got in our possession 6,300. Is that correct?
Correct.
And do we have any? We just purchased 2783. Is that correct?
Correct.
How many do we have?
Actually, we just purchased
No.
2,800.
2,800.
We just purchased 2,800.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the 17. I apologize.
We
Okay.
leased them, Mr. Cabral. We didn't purchase them.
All right. Well, all right. We signed an agreement to have them. Is that all right?
Correct.
All right. Now, my question is, are you going to, I don't know, get rid of 1,052 of them this coming year?
Yes.
All right. How many are we going to purchase this coming year?
None.
We're not going to purchase any.
Correct.
I have a problem with the fact that in year 2, year 3, we didn't buy any. Why don't we spread it out over the a 5-year program where each year we buy a certain amount, and that 5th year they're eliminated, rather than I'm looking at in 5 years we're going to eliminate 2783 or 2800, whatever you want to call it, right? We're going to eliminate those, and I'm just looking for a 5-year plan to purchase Chromebooks each year rather than hitting us with one big year. That's the only thing I understand.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the one thing that we want to do is we want to take a pause on leasing more Chromebooks next year. But by that time, sometime within the next month, we will have a 5-year plan that lays out what we're purchasing in what year, so that we don't have to purchase 2,800 again.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all I was asking.
Okay.
I want to spread it out. Is what I'm
Yep.
looking. I'm all set.
Marge, you're on mute.
I know. Usually it's just me in the house, and tonight there's a few more people. Does anybody else have a question, or can I go to the audience?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, Tara, go ahead.
So I wanted to find out a couple of things. What is the cost of the Ocean? Because in the budget and on what you gave us for the technology spreadsheet, it didn't have that cost.
So Ocean is our internet service provider, and I'm not sure offhand what the cost for internet that we budget for, but that's one of the e-ratable services that we submit for. So when we budget for it, I believe we budget for the full cost, and then when all of the forms are sent in and approved, that we pay for the E-rated cost.
So that's our internet service?
Yes.
All right, can you get, so I know that you probably, some of the questions that I have, you don't have the answers right now, but is that something that you could get for us, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, my second question is roles of the, and descriptions of the positions for your staff. So what the staff job descriptions are and what their roles are in your department. If you could get that for us.
We can do that.
I also would like to see a breakdown of the tickets. It was good to see that the number of tickets went down, considering the usage went up. So, but if we could see a breakdown of the tickets that you did receive this current year.
And break down how, Tara?
A breakdown, what by school, was it broken screens? Was it batteries? Did they, because that leads me to another question. What do we do in-house? And what do we service out to outside contractors? I know that we pay insurance. So what does that insurance cover? Does it cover the cost of the unit going out and being serviced? Do we service in-house? Do you guys fix some of the equipment? I believe you fix screens and batteries, but to be honest with you, I don't know. So I would like to know.
So yeah, the answer to that is yes. We do fix some things in-house. First 3 years, the devices are under, the Chromebooks are under warranty. And we typically send them out, or Dell sends a tech on site, but we can get you more of those details.
Thank you. And the other thing is the number of touch screens. So I know that we are giving first and second graders touch screen Chromebooks. So out of the 2,800 that we purchased, were any of those the touch screens?
Yes, I think 1,200 of them.
1,200 of those were touch screens. And so another question that I had, so programs like Brain Pop, Go Noodle, Quizlet, PeerDoc, Nearpod, programs that teachers use in their classroom as supplementary. Do we have any yearly subscriptions as a district for those kinds of programs? I know they can be, I know they're most offered free, but you can get subscriptions.
So let me just tell you, most of them are not offered free. What happens is software companies provide a free registration almost as the hook. And then once the teacher uses it and likes it, oh, well, if you want to unlock additional services, you have to, pay or whatever. But here's what we do as a district. Number one, the software has to be approved. So it can't just be that you found a software package and you decide to use that, because we need to make sure that, back to what Rose mentioned earlier, that they're not collecting student level data that in some ways is being used in inappropriate manner. And so we have a whole list of district approved software, and there are other software that teachers may want to use, but that are not approved. And we have been very clear that teachers are not, and staff should not be using unapproved software applications.
So do we as a district pay the subscription?
Yes, if we
and where do we find that in the budget?
So there's a line, right? So within that line for software is where you would get all of that information, but we'll provide that to you.
Okay. And a question on the copiers. The numbers that were presented seems like an awful lot of, so if you could just provide us some information, like 13 at the high school, 7 at the middle school, 5 at Hugh Cole. Are they, I would assume they're not all the same kind of copiers. So maybe a description of what those copiers are. And then I have a question. Are children or students allowed to use those copiers? Do kids copy or print from these copy machines? Or is it just staff and faculty?
Kids also print to the copy machines.
So looking at a lot of this, I am wondering, I have a couple more questions, but I can email you those questions. It might be a little bit easier. But
All right, send them to me.
looking at how much is the recommended screen time? Because we're looking at this. I learned a lot today about our technology department. But I learned that my children are on the screen a lot from all of this, because it seems like what I thought was supplementary materials seems to be primary. So it seems like all of these programs are more of a primary these days than a supplementary.
Well,
so how much screen time is actually recommended for students? I know there are different age levels.
So there are, so I guess, let me give you sort of two trains of thought. So number one, I think the American Academy of Pediatrics, that is the body that came out with screen time regulations, gave us those regulations pre-COVID, when the expectation was that students were in school 6.5 hours a day. And so you could then effectively address screen time. As a district, we set earlier in the pandemic that we had an expectation that I think K to 3, Diane Santa helped me out, was like 2 hours. And then 4 and 5 would be like 4, and then middle school would like 4, and then high school would be more. I think what we recognized through the pandemic is that it is nearly impossible for students not to be on the screen more, either with live instruction from their teacher or utilizing the Chromebook to do research or to complete assignments. So it has driven up screen time. But what we really should be looking at is how much time are they getting with a teacher, which I think, Mrs. Thibodeau, is your question. How much time are they actually getting with a teacher versus how much time are they just on the screen completing the assignment by themselves? And I think that's something that we certainly should look into. And then the last thing that I would just mention is that the primary instrument of instruction is still a classroom teacher, right? They're using technology because oftentimes the kids are not physically in front of them, but it's still technology in the hands. And I actually wrote myself a note. Technology in the hands of a masterful teacher is what we aim for. And that technology without teachers is not going to get us what we need for our students.
Thank you, Dr. Bryce. I'm going to slow this down here because we really were talking, and I asked of Dr. Bryce, who asked of Rose, who did exactly what I asked. I mean, how's that for 3 asks? To tell us how many we had, where they were, and what we were using them for. A discussion about screen time is very relevant, but not right now. And I have to go to the audience because I have
Can I
some
ask one more
questions.
question? And it's only because it's again, you don't have the information, I'm sure, on hand, but can you please add, I know that you said you have assets that you did not include in this. I didn't know if we supply special education students who may not be in our district additional equipment, or and also that are in our district, the 3D printers, because I know we have, I think, 6 at the high school, and even an inventory of what we have. We had a great walkthrough at the high school the other day, so even an inventory of the Mr. Latessa's room.
Broadcasting.
The broadcasting room. So a list of all equipment, even the FM audio systems that we have at the elementary level, if you could include that to see what we actually have.
Yeah, so just to clarify, that is probably technology that might not be on Rose's list. And so I think that's probably going to be a longer request.
Oh,
All right, because I think some of the equipment that you mentioned, like special ed, the FM audio system, that shouldn't be on Rose's list. That should be on the school's inventory or in student services inventory. But it is something that we can certainly look to find.
All right, I would also, Aaron, I see your hand up. I'm just gonna remind the school committee that and this is not a slap on the wrist. This is just a reminder that we work really hard to get our packets out to you on Thursday night and Friday afternoon. And that gives you the opportunity to ask all these questions in advance so that they are prepared to answer them when they come up on Monday night. So in the future, I would just suggest or remind you to send your questions ahead beforehand so that they have the opportunity to see what it is you're thinking about. And with that, I'm going to Aaron and then I'm going to Mr. Hewitt.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just want to say thank you also to Rose and her team. That was super informative and it was actually really interesting to go over. So thank you. I just want to also say that I think providing technology and technological readiness and savviness for our students is crucial to them being successful in their futures. It's not the same as what our futures looked like when we were in school, but I believe we need to make sure that we're providing that. And I just want to clarify a few things, not even clarify, just kind of highlight. So we were able to provide Chromebooks to every one of our students, Dr. Bryce, during at-home learning, correct?
That is correct.
And one of the things that I remember was that you had the foresight and your team to purchase Chromebooks in the nick of time, really, because I remember reading and hearing that other districts across the nation were having a very difficult time getting the technology they needed. And so even places, right outside of Boston and all through Massachusetts, which, has the best education, arguably, people say in the country, were at a loss. So I want to say that I think that's an example of the importance of tech, and thank you for being on top of that.
I mean, the first, we ordered 1,600. I think we signed for the 1,600 in May. We turned around and ordered the next 1,200. The 1,600 we ordered in May. They told us that the delivery was going to be, let's say, August the 20th. Mm-hmm. We turned around 2 weeks later and ordered another 1,200. They told us the delivery would be December the 30th. So there was an absolute run on Chromebooks from school districts all across the country, putting in huge orders. And if you think about it, if you're Dell or some other manufacturer and you get an order from Bristol Warren and our 1,600 or 1,200, and you get an order from LA Unified, which has 750,000 kids, and they want 500,000, something tells me that one school system's order takes precedence over another.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for having that foresight. I, as a parent and a school committee member, was very pleased that that's the way it turned out. And I think if you hadn't been thinking ahead and your team hadn't been thinking ahead, and the school committee as well, but you know what I mean? I'm not sure we would have had the same kind of success that we had. The other thing I just want to point out, so out of 7,600 devices, 7,604, a total of 4,588 are past their 3-year lifespan. So I just want to clarify, that means that we have just about 3,000, a little over 3,000 that are 3 years old or less.
Correct.
Right? So the majority, and certainly more than a higher number than what our enrollment is, are past their lifespan, which means, I just want to clarify for the public, that means that these devices have 3-year lifespans, right? So that means, I think, that once they're in their 4th year, we can still use them. Sometimes once they're in their 5th year, but they glitch, they may have problems, and though some of them may work past their lifespan, not all of them do, right? I just want to get clarification on that, because I know that as ours neared the end of year 3 here at our house, we started to have problems with speed and other glitches that made it very difficult and had to be sent in for repairs and back. So I just want people to know that, you know, these are things that really do have a lifespan. And once they start nearing that end, we try to squeeze out what we can get.
Absolutely.
But they're not functioning ideally at all. I mean, I've definitely had to give up my computer during the day when I'm trying to work to switch out, you know, so there's that. And I just wanted to say also that I really appreciated you contacting other districts to give us some perspective on how many staff members they have in their tech departments. Before I knew you were doing that, I actually reached out to the school committee chair in Barrington, who told me that, and this is a good example of what you said earlier, that, you know, it's just, they're not all listed the same in different districts, right? So in Barrington, where you have number of IT staff is 6, they counted as 5 IT staff and 1 department head, right? Whereas you put everything, I mean, that's just one example. And that they have an additional request for a position for this coming year. And I think one of the conversations we had that was important was that the reason they have that additional request is because they don't have what they need now. They can't keep up with the demand, is why they're putting a request for an extra person in that budget. So I think we need to keep in mind how much work this is, and how, you know, as we, certainly during COVID, and I think even without COVID, the demand is high, and we need to make sure that we can fulfill that. So thank you for the presentation, and thanks for taking my questions and comments.
Thank you, Erin. I'm going to go to the audience now. Mr. Hewitt?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mudge. I have a question and a comment and a question. First,
Ms. Mueller.
Pardon me?
Ms. Mueller.
Yes, Ms. Moore, thank you very much. Nice save. While I may be a technological dinosaur, I certainly can appreciate an excellent presentation when I hear one. And I thought that presentation was very, 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 very well done. Very comprehensive, very informational. I got more out of it than I thought I would. Now the question: what effective safeguards? This comes from grandfather now, and a dinosaur. What effective safeguards exist that ensure that none of these devices are susceptible to being used to gain access to inappropriate information, inappropriate material? Thank you.
So, Mr. Hewitt, thank you very much for the kind words and the compliments. I appreciate that. We have an internet filter that filters out content that is inappropriate at different age levels. So we have the recommended sites filtered so they cannot be accessible. They're recommended by the state of Rhode Island and also by the Child Internet Protection Act. At the beginning of COVID, we did not filter our at-home devices, but then during the pandemic, we did extend that internet filter. Dr. Bryce made the decision, and we worked really hard to get that into place, probably over the weekend, and everybody's device was filtered according to those industry standards at home.
So, and Mr. Hewitt, here's the other thing that I would also offer. The absolute best defense against our young people going places on the internet where they shouldn't is having parents and guardians and grandparents and aunts and uncles that are watching and just asking questions and making sure that they're not going places and interacting. We are certainly always concerned about kids providing personal information or getting into chats and having chats with people. We know as adults that there are individuals out here that may seek to entice young people to send a picture or to do all of those other things. The district also works with a program, Diane and Rose, I'm losing the program.
I'm not sure what program, Jonathan. Say, oh, he's frozen.
Yeah, I'm not frozen.
Do you know what program, Rose? Oh, she's frozen
Rose
as
is
well.
yeah, she's muted. Somebody muted everybody but you and me and Dr. Bryce. How are you, Dr. Bryce? Or is he frozen too?
Yeah, they're both frozen.
Carly's on, Nikki's
Me too.
on, Sarah's on, Sarah's on. We've just lost Dr. Bryce and there he is.
Back.
All right, does anybody else, are we frozen? No, we're not. Does anybody else from the audience have a question about technology? Yes, Mr. Bullard, I'm sorry. You have a question? We're frozen again.
Was just pointing out, it looked for a second like Dr. Bryce was back on his iPhone. He was in my corner of my screen, but anyway.
That's all right, go ahead. You had a question, yes? And you're muted. Who's muting everybody? Mr. Bullard. Ryan, where are you? Can you fix this?
All right, I'm just trying to make sure I'm not frozen.
No, nobody, as soon as I speak, everybody freezes. Maybe that's a hint that I should go. I'm already home.
I sent a note to Ryan.
Thank you.
Maybe they're frozen.
Well, Dr. Bryce, here's my, are you frozen? No.
I can hear you.
My concern is I really want to give a lot of time to Dr. Lyons, and do you think we still have enough time to do that?
I think, you know what? I think she's geared up. I think we can give her a good 12 minutes presentation, 12 minutes of questions.
Or we could treat her with a little more.
You want to move it? You want to move it?
I think that what she has to say is extremely important. And I don't want to see her squashed at the end of a meeting when people are holding their eyelids up to stay awake. That's my only concern, because I think what she has to say is something that this whole community is interested in. And I just happen to think it's pretty critical.
Okay.
But I will go with you.
Hold on, Tara, can you are the host. Can you give the host back to Ryan?
Oh, I don't know how to do that. How did I become the host?
All right. We don't know either. So we'll figure it out. You know what? I think it's 9:25. And if there is, you know what? I'd love to do the presentation now because I know she's ready. But I certainly don't want to do the presentation if people are going to drift off, if they haven't had a Coca-Cola or another cup of coffee. And so I will agree with you, Madam Chair, that maybe we put this number one on the agenda for the next time we meet, so that she would have ample opportunity. Everybody is fresh and they can hear the wonderful information about CTE.
I think it's really important, and I don't want to end up having it at the end of a meeting where we've had a lot of thought and discussion going on, and I'm excited to hear it. So can we do it at the end of the month as the first thing on our agenda before we move to anything else? Would that be all right with you, Dr. Lyons? I apologize that we have to do that. I was excited, waiting to hear it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Dr. Bryce is right. I'm ready to go, and I could end the night on a very enthusiastic note, but let's be real. We'll talk about CTE at the end of the month. So thank you very much for saying those kind words about CTE, and we'll go at the end of the month. It's not a big deal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Really. I mean, you stayed on here all night and it got later and later, and it's really not fair to you, or I think the community who is looking forward to seeing what your programs are. And from what I've seen, they're pretty exciting. So Dr. D, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just going to say thank you. I appreciate that. And I do agree as well that I think it would probably be better suited earlier on in the agenda when people are fresh and can really appreciate, because I am really excited about this as well. So I thank you.
I'm going to say to everybody here that after tonight, you know what it is you need to do. If you have questions about the presentation, make sure that Dr. Bryce gets them so that he can forward them on to Dr. Lyons before the next meeting. Now, just to announce to everybody that the next meeting is going to be on the last Monday of the month. We have moved it forward 1 week. So just put that in your calendar. I think the school committee has been notified of that, but for anybody in the audience or anybody who doesn't know, Dr. Bryce asked me today if we could move it, and I said, we sure can. So that's what we did.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have two quick announcements. Tomorrow at 6:30, any members of the community that are interested in learning about our strategic planning process and participating in that process, please go to our district webpage, and you'll have a link so that you can join us at 6:30. And on Wednesday, we have someone from RIDE who is in their finance office, who is doing a presentation on state funding for schools. And so it's just providing an overview of how state funding for education is derived, with a focus on Bwrsd. And so it's for information only. That begins at 6 p.m. and we'll put that out as well.
Thank you. I didn't know about that. I appreciate it.
Brand new. It just happened today, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. So put it on the airways. All right. So I wanted to say thank you very much. Been a good night, been a long night. I appreciate everything that everybody had to say. I certainly listened, and I learned. And that's the exciting part of being here on this committee. Every week's a different week, every day is a different day, and every half day is a different day, sometimes every hour. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?